Hello, this is Juniper, and I wanted to just make a small video on going over how to do some vector art graphics. If you're really keen to make graphics for video games or just some really cool vector art style graphics, hopefully this can be a really fun and quick video just going over a little look into how I created the graphics for Island Invasion. Let's aim simple and look at how we can layer these simple elements together to make one cohesive piece. So I start with a simple shape, and for this art style I use heavy outlines, and this creates a bit of that cartoony style. There's one really cool thing about how this is all built out, and it's basically just layers, shapes, and shades. So say that 10 times fast and maybe you'll have it in your brain, but layers, shapes, and shades is what I try to combine. So if I was to build this palm tree, for example, I know palm trees in real life kind of have this general look to them where each part of the tree goes up is almost separated a little bit. It's got lots of bevels and divots. And so what I'm going to do is not try to make this complicated tree shape. I'm just going to try and make the really small kind of droplet trunk. And I'm kind of making a slanted box with a little bit of a curve to it. So this is the kind of shape that I'm going for. It's almost like a box, but it's got sort of curves and angles to it. And that is the final shape. Now the awesome next part is I can just duplicate the shape and move it up, resize it a little bit as it moves up, maybe give it a little bit of rotation, and just keep kind of doing this to create the general shape of the tree trunk. And now you can kind of see that it all just starts to come together really well. Now for the leaves, I went for a really simple pattern here. You might be able to do slightly better depth or have curves to the leaves, but again, I just went simple. And so I press P on my keyboard and I make a point. I sort of go out on this angle and I make a curve like this. And then I just go straight up to the center, make a point, and as I come down, I want to make a curve and link it back to the start, sort of round it off all together. And this top point, I'm going to click on it when I edit and turn up the curviness. Layering is really important because as soon as we bring this up to the top, it instantly makes it look a lot better. So again, layers, shapes, and shades. This is all really that it is. And so this on its own is not too bad. You kind of get the idea that it's like a palm tree. You know, you could try and curve them around, play with them, but a little extra touch is the coconuts that I added just under the leaves. So again, it's just layers, shapes, and shades. And you just keep repeating this process of layers, shapes, and shades over and over and over until you have a really cool artwork. Whenever I want to move something under or above a layer, I can click the shape and use the square brackets on my keyboard to move it all the way to the bottom or all the way to the top. And so I can just kind of combine this together to get that effect. Now we've got a bit of a palm tree, but something you'll notice that I've done in all of these assets here is shadows. Shadows are really important for depth, and depth is great, especially in video games as well, because it feels kind of alive, feels like you can interact with it. But I'm not going to make a complex shadow shape. You could, but what I like to do is just do a really, really sort of thin circle like this, like an ellipse, and I just move it down to the bottom, and I try to shade it close to the ground. So I'll move the color down on the color wheel and then move the shade down like this. And then if you really want to, you can go even darker, but then just turn the opacity about halfway, and then this sort of blends it. I like to have more saturated shadows, and that's just because of the cartoony kind of design. But you can play around with the shadows however you like. Awesome, so now we've got an island and a tree. You can really mess around with a lot more, and something extra that I added in were these really cool bushes using the pen tool, and basically they were just two distinct shapes. I made one shape, shrunk it down to the second shape, and then shaded them, and gave everything an outline. Now, one final tip I'll leave with you with is how to make outlines for really complex objects. So I've made this pirate boat, and this pirate boat has a lot to it. Outlining this thing would be so painful. So what I actually did to get this outline, if I duplicate this over here, and I'm going to straight up remove the outline that I made for this example. And so this is what it looks like. Pretty cool, not too bad. And I can even remove the outline here. And so I just hold down Control or Command, select over all the parts and hit Control D to duplicate it. Then what you want to do is right click and you want to flatten. This is going to flatten everything into one vector. So we don't want to move it away, we just want to flatten it. And then what we want to do from here is hit Shift X, or add in a fill color if you don't have one. And then hit Shift X to turn it into an outline and move this to the outside. We can increase the thickness of the outline now, and it kind of looks like a sticker, which is fun. And something I like to do in the end is change the curviness to something like 2. And now we have a really cool outline to our boat. And I kind of like the white because it can really stand out against the background. Awesome. So now we've gone over a lot of basics of how to do and build up some vector scenes. And so I hope you can take this, do a bit of practice, and make up your own awesome vector graphics. Best of luck.